Before Daft Punk sampled humans on their masterpiece, Random Access Memories, and before they gave an insane record sampling masterclass on their other masterpiece, Discovery, they released their first album, Homework. This album is a snapshot of two guys who made lemonade out of lemons, getting the ultimate revenge on a critic, evolving dance music to a new level, and also previewing where they would go with their next few projects. So today I'm breaking down the story of this album, musical influences, and seeing how it connects to not only their future projects, but many other past ones. There are so many branches to this musical tree, it's crazy. This is the YouTube edit of this video. To watch the longer, fuller, and better version with more music and additional commentary, you gotta check out the Digging the Greats Patreon. Extended videos, monthly live streams, and a community of people who love music as much as you do. Our story starts in France in 1992 with Guy-Manuel de Homem Christo on guitar and Thomas Bangalter on bass, as well as Laurent Bronkowitz on guitar and drums. My apologies to anyone who speaks French or has ever heard the French language for my butchering of their names. They formed the band Darlin. For now, forget what you know about Daft Punk and the Robots. They were at this point just a couple of regular French dudes in a band. Darlin released a song called Cindy So Loud in 1993, which sounds like this. This was released as part of a compilation of songs with other artists, and there was a review in a publication called Melody Maker. In it, the critic rips apart every song on this compilation one by one, ending with the line, "The only thing I'm sure of is that lots of copies of this immensely indulgent curio will be making their way into record shops as second-hand racks over the next few weeks." And in one sense, yeah, the critic totally called it. I just checked Discogs, and this compilation is going for $300 or $400. The reason why it's so valuable now has nothing to do with the music on the album, but everything to do with what the critics said about Darlin specifically. The two Darlin tracks are a Daft Punky thrash called Cindy So Loud, that's the title and sole lyric, and a bizarre fuzz guitar reading of the Beach Boys' Darlin. Darlin broke up shortly after, but here we have a sort of branching off. If we look at a zoomed out view here, Darlin breaks up and Guy-Manuel and Thomas take that negative review, Daft Punky Thrash, and turn that into the name of their new project, Daft Punk. As for Laurent Bronkowitz, he went on to start a band called Phoenix. So here, let's draw this out. We start with Darlin, which I guess they actually took their name from the Beach Boys song. So Beach Boys, then Darlin splits off into Daft Punk and Phoenix. I wonder how many other branches we'll see here. Let's keep going. So Guy-Manuel and Thomas name their new project Daft Punk. The first song they made as Daft Punk was called The New Wave. This song is made with synthesizers and drum machines and is completely different from their previous project. The song I just played is actually a different mix from the original. This one was renamed Alive and was remixed for Daft Punk's debut album, Homework. The Daft Punk heads are going to be upset that I'm skipping over some history here, but stick with me. This song is relatively straightforward. Drum machine beat, pulsing synths, filters opening and closing. There's not a whole lot to it. It doesn't sound like signature Daft Punk, at least not in the way that the world would come to know them years later. However, we have another branch here on our musical tree. The New Wave was renamed Alive for their debut album, but in 2007, Daft Punk released their incredible live album titled Alive 2007. They're connecting back to their first song, their first album, and with the name Daft Punk, they're sticking it to this critic. But again, Alive from Homework, it's not quite signature Daft Punk sound yet. The duo has said that this album was more of a collection of songs. They didn't set out to make an album with a large concept. It's not one cohesive idea. They just realized they'd made enough songs to put out as an album, so that's what they did. There are other songs on Homework that are similar, fairly simple house music, but less Daft Punk sounding. But on other songs, we see other influences peeking through. As Thomas said, when we were 16 or 17, we also discovered Chicago house music, which is partly done with samples, but also there's a long tradition of more just drum machines and soulful recorded vocals. Which seems, when you think about it, like this kind of attempt to continue this tradition of disco. It seems our definition of how house music and Chicago house music was born, which was after Disco Sucks and the whole death of disco music in the early 80s, you just had people in the basement trying to make it with no money and hardly anything. If you've seen my video breaking down Discovery, you know how insane Daft Punk would get with their sampling, but this is Homework, an album named because they did the same thing as their inspirations. They made this at home. And actually, if we're talking musical branches on this tree, let's add another one for Chicago house, and then disco before that. Disco and sampling would have a direct influence on Daft Punk on songs like Da Funk. This was their first commercially successful single, and it builds on what they did with Alive. There's more to it, it's a little catchier, and it has a few samples in it. For example, here's a Bounce Rock Skate Roll by Vaughn Mason and Crew from 1979, and then Da Funk. Not only that, but there's also a Barry White sample in there. With these samples, Daft Punk is connecting directly to disco, as well as, what genre do you call Barry White? Like baby making? These drum samples form the basis of Da Funk and also the song Daftendirekt off of Homework, which, check this out. Here's that same Bounce Rock Skate Roll sample. These drum samples provide a rhythmic bed that they build the rest of the song on with synths, but let's draw another branch here because this is the duo just getting their feet wet with sampling. They kept pushing their sampling until they got to the insanity that is Discovery. So yeah, let's make another branch from Homework to Discovery. And don't worry, I'm gonna do one of these and link to my Discovery breakdown at the end of this video. But first, I want to show you even more branches on the biggest song from the album, Around the World. This song contains no known samples, but there is a clear influence Daft Punk is pulling in, and we're about to draw two more branches. Let's take a listen to the bass line from Around the World. Does that sound familiar at all? That's the bass line from Good Times by Chic, which was also interpolated for the Sugar Hill Gang song Rapper's Delight. So let's draw multiple branches. Chic to Homework, and then also Chic to Rapper's Delight, which branches off into a million other things into hip-hop. The bass line to Around the World isn't the same, but it is similar, and this was a very intentional thing. As Thomas said, Around the World was like making a Chic record with a talk box and just playing the bass on the synthesizer, since we couldn't afford to have Nile just do it. Nile Rodgers, of course, being the guitarist from Chic, who would be an integral part of Daft Punk's last album, Random Access Memories. Branch. While there are no known samples in this song, it's a more sophisticated composition from other stuff like Alive. There are specific parts that come in and out throughout the song. There's a couple of different bass lines, different synth lines or lead lines, drum beats that change up, and of course, the robotic voice repeating Around the World. Oh, right, Around the World is the title and also the sole lyric. Branch, directly back to Darlin because this was a criticism of Cindy So Loud. But these parts come in and out throughout the entire song. They don't fade in or have a lot of dynamic range. They're just in or they're not. These various synth parts are used in tandem with each other, so at the beginning of the song there's less happening. At the peak of the song we have a lot of parts. In other words, the musicality, the flow, the ups and downs, they come not from the dynamics, like loud or soft, but by the song being more complex with the parts or less complex. So like, think about this section. We got drums, we got the bass line, and we got the synth. But this keeps building. Here's the climax of the song. We got all these parts in here. Check it out. This is a staple of electronic music. Daft Punk didn't invent this, but Around the World is the clearest display of this idea on Homework. Are you ready for the branch, though? This same idea is at play with, say it with me, Johann Sebastian Bach. Aha! You didn't think this was going to be a Bach video, did you? But check this out. Nowadays, Bach pieces are played on the piano because that's the dominant keyboard instrument that we all have. The piano's full name is actually the pianoforte because it was a keyboard instrument that could play both piano, the musical term for soft, and forte, the term for loud. But back in Bach's day, the piano wasn't invented yet. He composed mostly for harpsichord and organ instead of piano. And the way those instruments work is the same thing that we see on Around the World. They don't have dynamic control. They literally cannot play louder or softer. It's just one static volume. But what you can do is play more notes, simultaneous chords, or like busy runs. That's how you get the variety. Check out this clip of a Bach harpsichord piece to see what I mean. So yeah, we're drawing a big old branch from Daft Punk's Homework all the way back to Bach. This idea of individual parts all interacting together on Around the World was visualized in a brilliant way for the music video, which was directed by Michel Gondry. If you haven't seen it, it's a must watch. There are 5 groups of 4 people, each dressed as either mummies, skeletons, swimmers, astronauts, and these dudes with huge shoulders. Each group represents a different part being heard, and they dance accordingly. And as the parts come in and out and change, so do the characters. I know this music video very well, better than most. I know the individual choreography. I know each musical part that the characters are playing, how it all fits together, and what it takes to put something like this together. I know this because for my college recital, I rounded up a band to play this song live, as well as 20 of my friends to dance and recreate this music video live. Branch. Take a quick look at those astronauts. Up until this point, Daft Punk was just the 2 guys. They had begun to obscure their faces wearing masks, but after this album, on September 9th of 1999, at 9:09 specifically, as the story goes, there was an accident in the studio, and when they awoke, Daft Punk realized they were robots. From then on, they performed in costume, in similar helmets, continuing to push the ideas they explored on Homework to new levels. And their next album, Discovery, specifically, it's the most insane sampling masterclass. The different techniques, the combination of samples, how they essentially form a brand new instrument out of it, it's incredible, and it's all in this video right here.
Told